It was a Tuesday when everything changed. The sun was shining through the window in our kitchen, casting a warm glow on the breakfast table. I had just poured myself a cup of coffee, the aroma filling the air, when I noticed her phone vibrating on the counter. My wife, Sarah, had stepped out to take a shower, and curiosity got the better of me. I picked it up, glancing at the screen to see a message from an unknown number. The name didn't mean anything to me at first. It was just a string of letters, but the message was clear. "Can't wait to see you tonight, I miss you." My heart dropped. The world around me seemed to blur, the vibrant colors of the morning fading into a muted gray. I felt as if the floor had been pulled from under me. I had always trusted Sarah, believed in the vows we took, in the life we had built together. But that trust was crumbling before my eyes, just like the message that implied she was with someone else, someone who was not me. I could hardly breathe as the weight of betrayal settled heavily in my chest. As I stood there frozen in shock, images flooded my mind. Our wedding day, the laughter we shared, the dreams we built. Those moments felt like fragments of a different life, one that was now tainted by deceit. I could hear the sound of the shower running in the background, a mundane reminder that life continued, even as my world shattered. I should have confronted her right then and there, but I couldn't bring myself to do it. Instead, I felt a strange mix of anger and confusion battling within me like a storm. The initial shock transformed into a whirlwind of emotions. I was angry, furious, actually. How could she do this to me? We had shared so much, sacrificed so much for each other. I was heartbroken, feeling like a fool who had placed unwavering faith in someone who had betrayed me. It was as if I was standing in the ruins of a once sturdy building, watching as it crumbled to the ground. And confusion. It enveloped me like fog, blurring my judgment. I had so many questions. Who was this architect? What did he have that I did? Did she love him? Was our marriage just a facade? I took a deep breath, trying to collect my thoughts. I had to think clearly. I had to confront her, but how? The thought of revealing my knowledge about her affair felt like opening a wound that would bleed endlessly. I knew that this moment would change everything. There would be no going back after I confronted her. I would have to face the truth, no matter how painful it might be. The minutes dragged on, and I felt like I was in a time warp. I couldn't focus on anything else. I glanced at the message again, my hands shaking. I had to know more. I opened her messages, my heart racing. The conversations were filled with flirtation and longing. It was clear that this was more than just a fling. It was a full-blown affair. I felt sick, like I had been punched in the gut. When Sarah finally emerged from the shower, her hair damp and a towel wrapped around her, I felt a surge of emotions. I wanted to scream, to cry, to make her understand the pain she had caused. But instead, I stood there, my heart pounding, preparing for the confrontation that would unravel our lives. I had to remain calm, to gather my thoughts before I faced her. "Sarah," I finally managed to say, my voice barely above a whisper. She looked at me, her eyes widening with a hint of concern. "We need to talk." And just like that, the calm before the storm shattered, and I braced myself for the emotional turmoil that was about to unfold. The tension in the air was palpable as I watched Sarah's expression shift from mild confusion to a flicker of apprehension. She sensed the gravity of my tone, and for a moment I felt a glimmer of hope that perhaps she would confess, that she would come clean. But deep down, I knew I was clutching at straws. The reality was stark and unforgiving, and the truth was a bitter pill I had to swallow. "Is everything okay?" she asked, her voice laced with concern. Her brow furrowed, and I could see the wheels turning in her mind, trying to piece together the sudden change in my demeanor. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what was about to come. "No, it's not okay," I said, my voice firmer. Then I found a message on your phone. Her face paled, and for a brief moment she looked like a deer caught in headlights. "What message?" she stammered, and I could see the panic rising within her. It was as if the walls of our home were closing in and the truth was about to spill out like a dam bursting. "The one from an architect," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. "You know, the one that said you missed him." Her reaction was immediate, a mixture of denial and fear. "That's not what you think, it's just a friend, someone from work," she exclaimed, her words tumbling over one another, but I could see the cracks in her facade. The way her voice trembled, the way her eyes darted away, it all screamed guilt. "Don't lie to me, Sarah," I said, my words cutting through the air like a knife. "I read the conversations. This is more than just a friend. You've been having an affair." The silence that followed was deafening. It felt like the world had stopped spinning, and all I could hear was the pounding of my heart. I watched as her expression shifted from shock to a pained resignation. She knew she had been caught. I didn't mean for it to happen," she finally said, her voice barely above a whisper. "It just happened. I was lonely and he was there." Lonely. The word hung in the air, heavy with implications. I felt my chest constricting as if someone had wrapped a vice around my heart. Lonely. We've built a life together, Sarah. What about our vows, our promises? She looked down, unable to meet my gaze. "I know I messed up. I'm so sorry. I didn't want to hurt you." The betrayal cut deep, and I felt a mixture of anger and heartbreak surge within me. "But you did," I said, my voice rising. "You shattered everything we had. How could you do this?" Tears streamed down her cheeks, and I could see the guilt etched on her face. "I don't know." I felt trapped. "I thought I could find happiness elsewhere." Her words felt like daggers, each one piercing my heart further. I had always believed that love was enough, that we could weather any storm together, but this was a betrayal I never anticipated. I had poured my heart and soul into our marriage, and now it felt like I was standing in the ruins of my own life, watching everything I cherished crumble. "I want you to leave," I said, the words spilling out before I could stop myself. "I can't look at you right now." Her eyes widened in disbelief. "What? You can't be serious. We can work through this." "No, Sarah, you've made your choice. You've chosen him over me." The finality of my words hung in the air, and I could see the realization dawning on her. This was it. There was no going back. I had to protect myself, to reclaim my dignity in the face of her betrayal. "I'll stay with my sister for a while," she said, her voice trembling. "I'll give you space." I nodded, feeling numb. I watched as she gathered a few belongings, her movements mechanical, and I realized that our life together was disintegrating before my eyes. Each item she packed felt like another brick being removed from the foundation of our marriage. As she left the house, I felt a mix of relief and despair. The door closed behind her, and I was left alone in the silence, surrounded by memories that now felt tainted. The walls echoed with the laughter we once shared, now replaced with an overwhelming sense of loss. In the aftermath of that confrontation, I was left with questions that haunted me. How could someone I loved betray me so completely? What would happen next? I knew I had to take control of my life, to confront the architect who had taken my wife from me. But first, I needed to process the emotional wreckage of what had just happened. I had to figure out what I wanted, what my next steps would be. After Sarah left, the silence in the house was deafening. I stood in the living room, feeling like a ghost in my own home, surrounded by the remnants of a life that felt increasingly foreign. The walls that once felt like a sanctuary now loomed over me, whispering memories of laughter and love that had been shattered by betrayal. I wandered aimlessly, my mind racing, trying to process the whirlwind of emotions that had engulfed me. I thought about the architect, the man who had stolen my wife. I didn't even know his name at that moment, but I was determined to find out. The thought of him, the image of him holding her, whispering sweet nothings in her ear, ignited a fire within me, a mix of rage and a desire for revenge that I had never known I possessed. I needed to confront him, to make him understand the pain he had caused. He had disrupted the foundation of my life, and I felt an overwhelming urge to dismantle his world brick by brick. I spent the next few days in a haze, replaying the moments of our confrontation over and over in my mind. I couldn't escape the images of Sarah's tears, the regret in her voice, but more than anything, the betrayal felt like a wound that refused to heal. Each day, I woke up with the same gnawing emptiness, and each night I lay awake, plotting my next steps. I took to the internet, searching for the architect. I needed to know everything about him, his name, his background, where he worked. I discovered that his name was Mark, a rising star in the architectural world, known for his modern designs and innovative projects. But what struck me was a photograph I found online. A handsome man, confident, with a smile that looked too familiar. I felt a surge of anger wash over me. This was the man who had seduced my wife, who had taken advantage of her vulnerabilities. As I dug deeper, I learned that Mark was involved in a significant project, a luxury apartment complex that was set to break ground in a few months. I could see the ambition in his eyes, the kind of drive that had drawn Sarah in. The more I learned about him, the more I felt the desire to confront him face to face. I wanted him to know what he had done to my life, to see the impact of his actions firsthand. I decided to visit the construction site one afternoon, my heart racing with anticipation. As I approached, I could see the blueprints scattered across tables, workers bustling about, and the sound of machinery humming in the background. I felt a surge of adrenaline as I stepped onto the site, my mind racing with possibilities. Would Mark be here? Would I have the chance to confront him? I wandered around trying to blend in, my heart pounding in my chest. It was a chaotic environment, but I felt strangely empowered. I was no longer the victim, I was taking charge. After what felt like an eternity, I spotted him, standing by a group of workers discussing plans with an air of authority. I could see the confidence radiating from him, and for a moment I hesitated. Was I really prepared for this confrontation? But then I remembered Sarah's face, the hurt in her eyes, and the betrayal that had shattered my world. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what was to come. I approached him, my heart racing, and as I got closer I could feel the tension in the air. "Mark!" I called out, my voice cutting through the noise of the construction site. He turned, surprise washing over his features. "We need to talk." His expression shifted from confusion to recognition as he took a step back, his eyes narrowing. "Who are you?" he asked, his voice calm, but I could sense the tension beneath the surface. "I'm her husband," I replied, the words tumbling out with a mix of anger and desperation. "You think you can just waltz in and take my wife from me without any consequences?" He looked unfazed, and that infuriated me even more. "Look, I didn't mean to get involved with her. It just happened," he said, dismissing my pain as if it were an inconvenience. "Just happened," I echoed, my voice rising. "You think that makes it okay? You've ruined everything we built together. You have no idea what you've done." He crossed his arms, a smirk playing on his lips. "It's not my fault your marriage was falling apart. Maybe you should have paid more attention to her." His words hit me like a slap to the face. I felt my blood boil, the anger surging within me like a tidal wave. "You're a coward, Mark, hiding behind your charm and good looks while you destroy lives. Do you even care about the pain you've caused?" He shrugged, a nonchalant gesture that only fueled my rage. "People make choices. If she chose me, what does that say about your relationship?" In that moment, I realized he was right about one thing: I had to take control of my life. But it wasn't just about confronting him. It was about reclaiming my dignity, my self-worth. I had to make a choice, too. "I may not be able to change what happened," I said, my voice steady, "but I won't let you get away with this. You'll regret ever crossing me." With that, I turned and walked away, my heart pounding in my chest. I had confronted the man who had taken everything from me, and while I felt a sense of empowerment, I also knew that this was just the beginning. I had to dismantle the life Sarah had chosen with him, brick by brick, and I was determined to start with my own life. The anger simmered within me, and I knew I had to channel it into something productive. I was ready to take the next steps, to ensure that the foundation of their affair crumbled beneath them. After my confrontation with Mark, the anger that had been brewing inside me transformed into a cold, steely resolve. I had stepped onto the battlefield, and I was ready to wage war, not just against him, but against the life Sarah had chosen. I needed to dismantle everything they had built together, brick by brick, until there was nothing left for her to cling to. The first step was to ensure that Sarah understood the gravity of her choices. I knew she had returned to her sister's house, and while I didn't want to reach out to her just yet, I needed to set the stage for what was to come. I started by gathering evidence of her infidelity, documenting everything I could find: messages, pictures, and any details about her interactions with Mark. I wanted to make sure that when the time came, there would be no denying the truth. I spent hours going through her belongings, searching for anything that could provide insight into their affair. I found receipts from restaurants where they had dined together, photos of places they had visited, and even a few texts that hinted at their plans for the future. Each piece of evidence felt like a dagger to my heart, but I had to push through the pain. I was no longer a passive victim. I was taking control of my narrative. Once I had accumulated enough evidence, I began to formulate a plan. I wanted to expose their affair to everyone who mattered, friends, family, and colleagues. I wanted Sarah to feel the weight of her betrayal, to understand the consequences of her actions. It was time to make her choices public and shatter the illusion of happiness she had built with Mark. I started with her closest friends. I reached out to them individually, sharing snippets of the evidence I had gathered. I wanted them to know that the woman they admired and respected was capable of betrayal. I shared the text, the photographs, and the receipts, each piece meticulously crafted to paint a picture of deceit. The reactions were mixed. Some were shocked while others were sympathetic. But the common thread was disbelief. How could Sarah, the woman they had known for years, betray her husband in such a profound way? I could sense the whispers spreading like wildfire, and with each conversation I felt a sense of satisfaction. I was reclaiming my narrative, and it felt empowering. Next, I decided to confront her family. I scheduled a dinner at her parents' house, knowing that they would be blindsided by the revelation. I had always been close to her family, and the thought of hurting them pained me, but I knew it was necessary. I needed them to understand the impact of Sarah's actions, to see her for who she had become. When the evening arrived, I arrived early, my heart racing with anticipation. Her parents greeted me warmly, oblivious to the storm that was about to hit. As we sat down for dinner, I felt a knot tightening in my stomach. I had rehearsed what I would say, but the reality of the situation was far more daunting than I had anticipated. After some small talk, I took a deep breath and looked them in the eyes. "I need to talk to you about Sarah," I said, my voice steady but laced with emotion. Their expressions shifted from warmth to concern, and I knew I had their attention. "What's wrong?" her mother asked, her brow furrowed. "It's about her and Mark," I began, bracing myself for their reaction. I launched into the details of the affair, sharing the evidence I had collected. I watched as their faces drained of color, shock replacing the warmth that had been there just moments before. "This can't be true," her father said, shaking his head in disbelief. "Sarah wouldn't do that." "But she did," I replied, my voice firm. "I have the proof. She has betrayed our marriage, and I want you to know what kind of person she has become." The silence that followed was suffocating. Her mother's eyes filled with tears, and her father looked like he was grappling with a whirlwind of emotions. I felt a mixture of guilt and vindication. I didn't want to hurt them, but I needed them to understand the reality of the situation. "We'll talk to her," her mother finally said, her voice trembling. "We had no idea." As I left their house that evening, I felt a strange sense of closure. I had taken a significant step in dismantling the life Sarah had created with Mark. I had exposed her betrayal to those who mattered, and I hoped it would force her to confront the consequences of her actions. But I wasn't done yet. I still had one more person to confront, Mark. I knew that exposing their affair to Sarah's family and friends wasn't enough. I wanted him to feel the weight of his actions, to understand that there would be repercussions for his role in this betrayal. It was time for my final act of revenge. I decided to visit his office, armed with the evidence I had collected. I wanted to catch him off guard, to show him that I wasn't just some naive husband. I was a man determined to reclaim my life, and I would not let him walk away unscathed. The day of the confrontation arrived, and as I walked through the sleek glass doors of his office building, I felt a surge of adrenaline. I was ready. I approached the receptionist, my heart racing as I asked to see Mark. "Do you have an appointment?" she asked, her tone professional. "No, but it's urgent. He needs to see me," I replied, my voice steady. After a moment of hesitation, she nodded and picked up the phone to call him. I could feel the anticipation building within me, and when Mark finally emerged from his office, I saw the surprise wash over his face. "What are you doing here?" he asked, his voice tense. "We need to talk," I said, stepping into the office. "And this time it's just you and me." As I closed the door behind me, I felt a sense of finality wash over me. This was the moment I had been waiting for, the moment I would lay bare the consequences of his choices. I was ready to take down the life they had built, starting with him. As the door clicked shut behind me, I felt a wave of determination wash over me. Mark stood there, the confident facade slipping as he realized that this confrontation was inevitable. The tension in the room was palpable, and I could see the gears in his mind turning as he assessed the situation. I could almost hear the internal dialogue. Was he going to play it cool, or would he attempt to deflect? "Look, I don't know what you think you're doing here," he began, trying to regain some semblance of control. "This isn't the place for this conversation." I took a step closer, my heart pounding in my chest. "No, Mark, this is exactly the place for it. You've invaded my life, and I'm here to make sure you understand the consequences of your actions." His expression shifted from surprise to annoyance. "I did come here to fight with you. Sarah and you what?" I interrupted, my voice rising. "You think you can just sweep in and take what's mine without any repercussions? You're nothing but a coward hiding behind your charm and your architecture. You're playing with lives, and it's time someone held you accountable." I could see a flicker of uncertainty cross his face, and it fueled my resolve. I pulled out my phone, scrolling through the messages I had collected. "You think this is some kind of game? Look at what you've done." I showed him screenshots of their conversations, the flirtation, the plans they made. "You've broken my marriage, and now you're going to face the music." He glanced at the screen, and I could see the anger bubbling beneath the surface. "You think this is all my fault? Sarah made her own choices, too. You need to look at your own marriage and ask why she turned to me." The words hit me like a slap, but I refused to let him see how deeply they affected me. "I'll take responsibility for my part, but that doesn't absolve you of yours. You knew she was married, yet you pursued her anyway. You're just as guilty." He opened his mouth to respond, but I pressed on, refusing to let him deflect. "You may think you're untouchable, but I'm not going to let you walk away from this unscathed. You're going to understand the consequences of your actions, and I will make sure everyone knows what you've done." Mark's bravado began to crumble as he realized I wasn't backing down. "What do you want from me?" he asked, his voice now laced with a hint of fear. "I want you to know that I'm not going to sit idly by while you destroy my life. I'm going to expose you for what you really are. I'll tell everyone about your affair with my wife, and I'll make sure it affects your career. Do you think your clients will want to work with a man who breaks up families?" His eyes widened, the reality of my words sinking in. "You wouldn't dare," he shot back, but I could see the uncertainty in his expression. "Oh, I would," I replied, my voice steady. "You've put yourself out there as reputable architect, but I'll make sure your reputation is tarnished. I'll reach out to your clients, your colleagues, and I'll make sure they know who you really are. I'll expose every detail of your affair, and I won't stop until you're held accountable." The tension in the room was thick enough to cut with a knife. I could see the wheels in his mind turning, and for the first time I sensed that he was genuinely intimidated. "You're playing a dangerous game," he warned, but I could see the cracks in his bravado. "I'm not playing, Mark. This is my life you've disrupted. You've taken my wife, and now I'm taking back my dignity. You may think you're safe behind your walls of success, but I will dismantle everything you've built, just like you did to my marriage." His expression shifted, and I could see the anger boiling over. "You think you can intimidate me? I've dealt with tougher men than you." "Maybe," I said, my voice low and steady, "but they didn't have as much to lose as I do. I have everything to fight for, and I'm not going to back down." As I turned to leave, I heard him call out after me, "You think this is over? You're making a mistake." I paused, looking back over my shoulder. "No, Mark. The mistake was yours the moment you decided to pursue a married woman. I'm just making sure you understand the consequences. This is only the beginning." With that, I walked out of his office, feeling a sense of empowerment wash over me. I had confronted him, laid bare the reality of his choices, and made it clear that I wouldn't let him get away with his actions. I was no longer the victim. I was taking control of my life, and I was ready to dismantle everything they had built together. As I drove back home, I felt a mix of emotions: anger, sadness, but also a sense of liberation. I had taken decisive action, and while the road ahead was uncertain, I knew I was on the right path. I was reclaiming my narrative brick by brick, and I wasn't going to stop until I had dismantled the life Sarah had chosen. But as I reflected on the confrontation, I knew that the emotional aftermath was still looming. I had to confront the reality of my marriage, the choices I had made, and the future that lay ahead. I still had one final step to take before I could truly move on. I needed to face Sarah one last time. The days that followed my confrontation with Mark were a blur. I felt a strange mix of empowerment and emptiness. I had taken significant steps to reclaim my life and confront the people who had invaded it, but the emotional toll was heavy. Each night I lay awake, wrestling with the reality of my situation. I had dismantled their world, but what about mine? I knew I had to face Sarah one last time. I needed to confront the woman I had loved, the woman who had shattered my trust and turned our life into a battleground. I wanted to give her a chance to explain, to hear her side of the story directly. I wanted closure, and I needed to understand what had driven her to betray me. I reached out to her, suggesting we meet at a cafe we used to frequent. It was a place filled with memories, laughter, love, and dreams for the future. But now it felt like a battlefield where we would face the consequences of our choices. As I arrived, I felt a knot tightening in my stomach. Would she show up? What would I say? When I saw her walking toward me, my heart raced. She looked different, as if the weight of her choices was pressing down on her. Her eyes were red-rimmed, and she wore a look of apprehension. I could tell she was nervous, and part of me felt a twinge of sympathy. But then I remembered the pain she had caused, and I steeled myself for the conversation ahead. "Thank you for meeting me," I said, trying to keep my voice steady as she sat down across from me. "I wanted to talk about everything." She nodded, her expression a mix of regret and uncertainty. "I know I've hurt you, and I'm sorry. I never meant for any of this to happen." "Sorry doesn't change what you've done, Sarah," I replied, my voice firm. "You've broken our vows, shattered my trust, and you think a simple apology can fix it." Her eyes filled with tears, and I could see the guilt etched across her face. "I know I messed up, I was lost, and I thought I could find happiness in someone else, but it was a mistake, a terrible mistake. A mistake that cost us everything," I said, my voice rising. "You chose to pursue an affair rather than communicate with me. You didn't think about the consequences, not just for us, but for your family and friends. You've hurt so many people." "I know," she whispered, her voice breaking. "And I'm so sorry, I wish I could take it back. I never wanted to hurt you." "But you did," I said, my heart heavy with sorrow. "You've taken everything we built and thrown it away. I've exposed your affair to everyone who matters. Your friends and family know the truth now. I wanted you to understand the impact of your choices." She looked down, shame washing over her. "I understand. I deserve this. I've lost everything, and I don't know how to fix it. I don't expect you to forgive me." "Forgiveness comes with time, and I don't know if I'll ever be able to forgive you," I replied, my voice softening slightly. "But I need to know, what do you want now? What do you hope to achieve after everything that's happened?" She took a deep breath, her hands trembling. "I just want to make things right. I want to be better, to learn from my mistakes. I know I've hurt you, but I want to try to heal, even if it means doing it without you." I felt a pang of sadness at her words. The woman I had loved was still there, buried beneath the betrayal and guilt. "You have to understand, Sarah, that I can't be part of your healing process. I need to focus on myself now. I have to rebuild my life without you." Tears streamed down her face, and I could see the weight of her choices pressing down on her. "I never wanted to lose you," she said, her voice choked with emotion. "I was so stupid. I thought I could find something I was missing, but I was wrong. I wish you had talked to me instead of seeking comfort elsewhere," I replied, my voice steady. "We could have worked through our problems together, but now, I have to protect myself." The silence that followed was heavy with unspoken words. We were both grappling with the reality of our situation, the love we once shared now buried under the weight of betrayal. "I hope you find what you're looking for, Sarah," I said finally, my voice softening. "But I can't be part of your journey anymore. I need to focus on healing myself." As I stood up to leave, I felt a mix of sadness and relief. I had faced her one last time, laid bare the reality of our shattered marriage, and made it clear that I was moving on. As I walked away from the cafe, I felt a sense of closure wash over me. The road ahead would be difficult, but I was determined to rebuild my life. I had taken control of my narrative, confronted those who had wronged me, and now it was time to focus on my own healing. I knew that the scars would remain, but I was ready to embrace the future, brick by brick. I had dismantled the life Sarah had chosen, but I was also laying the foundation for my own. I would rise from the ashes of betrayal stronger and more resilient than ever. And as I stepped out into the world, I felt a glimmer of hope. It was time to reclaim my life, to rebuild what had been lost, and to move forward into a new chapter, one where I was in control of my own destiny. And with that thought, I took a deep breath, ready to embrace whatever came next.